Aloha, I'm Kala'i Miller, and welcome to Home is Here. The ocean. For some, it's where they have fun. For others, it's where they get their food. For Oahu's and Yoshida, the ocean is comfort and healing, helping her chart a new path after a life-changing accident.
I think like when you almost lose life, you start feeling that like preciousness of what life is about and how mortal you are. I had a rediscovery of who I really was, who I wanted to become. You know, I was 21 about the time. So I actually felt that change that, hey, I'm the maker of my own life. Like I can mold myself into whatever I want it to be. I was in Utah getting my bachelor's degree in human biology, and I came home one night after work, and I was a passenger in a car, and someone crashed into the side of my car. They had a bigger truck, so like a 1970s step-side truck, and I was in a Nissan Sentra. So the impact was pretty obvious for me because I was the one that stopped that truck. I walked out of that automobile accident, actually, and went into the ambulance and was basically thinking that I had a broken arm. My left arm was broken, and didn't realize that the impact actually kind of ripped my aorta. It was seeping blood, and I was having a hard time breathing, and the doctor said to get her in and scan her. They saw some blood leaking. She picked up my aorta, and it burst in her hands, basically. And so she clamped it, repaired it, put a graft in and stuff like that. But when the aorta is clamped off, the oxygen stops to your cells and your nerves start dying. And that's kind of what happened in my spinal cord. No oxygen went to my spine. When I woke up, no one really told me that I was paralyzed. They didn't know that I would be paralyzed, actually. It's not like you can feel that you cannot feel. I felt that feeling of heaviness on my lower body and even in my chest when I was trying to breathe. I was like, something is wrong with me. I don't know what's going on. I had no experience before with someone who was paralyzed. So I went in not knowing anything, very ignorant of, and almost like a new child. And so like a new child, I was like a sponge. And I just soaked everything in, tried to learn everything I could. And I've never like explained it this way before, but it feels like you're a new person. So expectations actually go very low with people that are around you, like my parents, you know, they all had these huge expectations, but now it was like trauma came and they were like, whoa, you're alive, what? You know, so it's just like this blank slate. It's almost like a rebirth. I went through this crazy trauma, I almost died, and now there's a glimmer of hope, even though there's a long road to get to that glimmer. And really, I didn't have expectations on myself either. I knew I could do things, but I didn't know what I could do. And so I discovered, I went out with a curious heart and a curious mind and a curious body to discover what I could do. And realized that it's pretty amazing what I could do, and I still can do. Every day I just said, I'm gonna do what I can do, one thing more than I did yesterday. I remember very distinctly of the goal of me being able to sit up with my feet over my bed for 40 minutes. And that was like a goal I had in my head that I didn't tell anyone, but it was like, I just want to be able to sit up in my bed because laying down is exhausting and it's sore, you know, it's not fun. I did that, and then it was like, oh, okay, well, I could do that. What else can I do, right? I used to walk to school up this crazy hill. It's called Suicide Hill, super steep, between my house up to Mililani Waina, where I went to elementary school. I was pushing up the hill, right? And the first day I could like barely get down the road. My body couldn't handle the environmental stresses. It took maybe, I think it was about a year, it took me to get up to that top of that Snake Hill. And once I did that, I was like, oh, now what can I do, right? And then you're like, oh, I want to start driving again. Oh, I want to go back to school again. Oh, I want to get a job again. Oh, I want to move out of my family's house. Oh, I want to, you know, start surfing. Oh, I want to start an organization that helps people surf who are in my situation. Oh, I want to go paddling. Oh, I want to paddle around the world. I want to become the best Native Hawaiian adaptive paddler in the world. You know what I mean? those are the things, like the small little goals grow into these huge goals. And, you know, my friend made this saying of, you know, when your dreams come true, they take flight. Well, these dreams were the goals that I had created for myself. And it took flight. And, you know, there's so much power in that. And I think that was kind of the process. It didn't start with me going up that mountain. It started me with even looking at the mountain or just thinking that there was a mountain, right? That's kind of the process. It took years and years and years. 4 years after I was paralyzed, we were getting back into paddling at an event, a community event with Hawaiʻi Adaptive Paddling Program, and Rich Julian, Mark Marble, and a few other people. I mean, there were a lot of us got together and we started talking about, oh, this can be done in surfing. And I was one of the first participants at Access Surf, and also slowly moved into a volunteer role, and then naturally moved into the athlete role, and now I'm a staff role. I kind of grew up with Access Surf. I think back then we had to do a lot of re-educating, repainting that picture of what a person with a disability could or couldn't do, that people with disabilities are not liabilities in the water. It comes down to the people who don't know ocean are the liabilities, not the people with disabilities. But we had to kind of push through that.
Finals day and the PCH, the Pacific Coast Highway, Honolulu, Hawaii.
I think when it comes to competitive surfing, that is just like one part in growing a sport. Their picture of a surfer is not a person with a disability. And so I looked at competition in surfing more of an educational piece, an outreach piece, so that people can see, one, that the sport is there, right? There's sport, there's people who are doing it, it's competitive, and it can be really amazing. And then that image just grew across the world. Now there's world championships every year. I started competing not because I was a competitive surfer, because I never really was. I just started competing because I'm trying to build a sport with other people around me, and just change people's ideas of what life with a disability can be, really. And that's changed me too, you know. I've also changed my personality and my vision of what a person with a disability can or can't do. Maybe 2006 or 5 that I started getting into paddling and realized very quickly that paddling is a one sport that you could do around the world. And I paddled all over the world. There's not a lot of adaptive paddling coaches. And so I moved to North Carolina. A friend put me up in her extra room, and I paddled with a coach that was, to me, the best in the nation, and learned a lot from him and changed who I was really as a paddler. 2010 to 2016, I got bronze. 2015, I got silver. 2016, I got gold. And that was also when the 2016 Paralympics was in Rio. That was an amazing experience. I got there because Russia pulled out. You know, I wasn't the best. I was in the world. I was, you know, top 10 or top 8 or whatever it is. A spot opened up and I was the alternate, and they put me in. And I paddled, and I made it to the finals, actually, which was pretty good. And in the final race, halfway through the race, I flipped in the race. And I thought that I would be devastated, but actually kind of replayed what I went through to get to that point. And then I realized that really it was the process that I went through that changed who I was. It wasn't the end result of being on a podium in the Paralympics. I mean, that would have been nice, but it was really the process that I went through to change, to be able to get to where I was, to be amongst the best in the world. So the rescue boat came to get me after I flipped in that lagoa, and you know, it's like so gross, all the poop goes in there and everything. And the first thing I thought was, what a relief And the process really is what changed me. So there's a photo of me on that boat, holding onto the side, and I'm super, like, I just have this huge smile. And I was like, you think that I'd be crying or, something, but no, I was just so happy and excited. I felt so much love and happiness and joy for all of us. I use it every day, really. The things that I learned training for the Paralympics, they are lessons that have been with me and will continue to be with me for the rest of my life. Being a water person, I feel very comfortable in the ocean. Actually, I feel more comfortable in the ocean than on land. I feel more safe, really, on the ocean than in land, which is, I think it's not a way that most people feel. And I think that was just from my parents and from their parents and from the generational comfort that we have as a family that are in the water. My mom would look to the ocean as a place of help and love and embracing. And so I grew up with those concepts that going into the ocean is where I could get balance, where I could feel health, where I could feel renewed. And when I lived outside of Hawaii, I was not in the ocean. And there was always this part of me missing. And when I got into the mountains, it almost kind of filled me up like the ocean did. And so I realized that there was a correlation between the mountains and the ocean. Nature was created with spiritual power. We were created with spiritual power. And when we go back to these places, we're able to heal because our spiritual power is being connected. I don't understand it all, but I understand that when we spend time in these green and blue spaces, we change. We get recharged. I was always looking for a place to kind of carry out the childhood dream of living off-grid in the mountains, sharing a community center with that. I was open to that opportunity and it came to me and I said yes. It's not easy, of course, there's a lot of work behind it, but there's reason in everything you do. What I've learned in Access Surf, it's not really a disability thing. Accessibility to the ocean, there could be barriers not only physical, it could be knowledge-wise, it could be community-wise, it could be support system-wise. There's a lot of barriers that stop you from getting into the ocean. I'm realizing that people don't understand really what accessibility is. And all we're doing is trying to expand what accessibility looks like. I did all these things in the ocean. There wasn't anything in Hawaii for accessibility in the mountains. And I realized it's not a disability thing in this case. It could be that you don't have money to or access to land. You don't know people who have land. You don't know someone who would let you be on land in natural environments. It could be a lot of reasons. It could be an internal thing. It could be a community thing. It could be a socioeconomic thing. A lot of these barriers are across the board. People have barriers to getting in nature. We have become so separated from natural environments. We've become disconnected to the old practices of being one with nature, right? And so being able to have a place to become connected in nature, be connected to the mana, to the spiritual power that is in the creation, it just brings us back to being connected. And then as we are connected, we become restored. And I continue my work in the ocean, of course. And as people learn and as the community gets bigger, I have to do less, really. And it's been nice to see that. And now there are opportunities that open, people that I meet that could benefit from being here at Holomua Farms. And so my vision is, one, to have a place of connection, right? A place of restoration and a place of being able to share. I believe that the nature will teach us. I'm just here to facilitate if that's possible. And sometimes I facilitate well and sometimes I don't. But I'm learning as I'm going. But I have a willing heart and open heart and open mind to learn. And I see the vision. I think I was prepared my entire life to be able to carry this work out.
Mahalo for joining us. It is because of the generosity of viewers like you that we are able to share these stories. If you would like to support our mission to advance learning and discovery, please visit pbshawaii.org and click on the Donate Now button. For Home is Here, I'm Kala'i Miller. Ahui ho.